Hello guys, welcome back to Basic and Cook, and today we're going to be making some yummy Asun jollof rice. If you are coming from my Instagram, I said that this is jollof rice that does not need stew to be sweet. Okay, so just stay and watch this video to see how I arrived at that amazing result. So first of all, when you're making jollof rice, what people fail to understand is the quality of your meat stock. In fact, when you're making any rice in general, that you're going to be using the meat stock to cook it, the quality of your meat stock goes a long way to assuring that your rice tastes amazing. Okay, so here I'm going to be using goat's meat, and then I have some chopped onions, some pepper that I blended with garlic and ginger, some curry powder, some thyme, and some seasoning cubes. I'm using some beef seasoning cubes. Okay, so I'm going to give that a good mix. I do not use salt to cook because the seasoning cubes that I use already contain a lot of salt, so I do not use salt, no extra salt in my cooking. So once you see me putting maggi, do not tell me it is too much. Or if you see me putting seasoning cubes, we call everything maggi over here in Nigeria, but once you see me putting seasoning cubes, don't say it's too much because I am not using any extra salt. So I cover that and I let the meat release its own juices so that it could absorb the seasonings that I have added before I add in some extra water. Okay, so it's always important to let your meat release its own, because meat always has its own juices in its body. So once you cover it, it's going to release the juices, then cook in the seasoning before you can now add in some extra water. Now when you're making jollof rice, for your jollof base, you need to make sure that your red bell peppers and your so over here in Nigeria, it's called tatashe shombo. So you need to make sure that your tatashe and your shombo together is more than your tomatoes, because that is what will give it that vibrant red color, not the tomatoes. Okay, so make sure that you have more of your tatashe and your shombo than your fresh tomatoes. So for those abroad, it's called, I think, red bell peppers, and I think the shombo is called, I don't know if that's the cayenne pepper. I would confirm and probably put it in my comment section. But once you do that, I get some garlic, some ginger, some onions, and I'm going to boil this in some water. Okay, now the reason I'm doing this is because I want it to, once you boil it, once you boil it first and then you blend it, it's the same thing as when you grill it first. It takes out the water that the tomatoes and everything has, so that way when you blend it, it kind of has this texture of tomato paste. Okay, so that's what you want. But I do not boil my scotch bonnet with it, because I want my scotch bonnet to retain the heat. If I boil it first, the heat from the scotch bonnet will be reduced, and I don't want that because I'm a Nigerian girl and I like spice. So I add my scotch bonnet once I'm putting it into the blender, and then I blend this till it is smooth. So now at this point our goat meat is ready and I want to fry it. Now another tip is, when you're making jollof rice, whatever protein you're going to be using, make sure that if you're frying it in oil, the same oil that you use to fry your protein is the same oil that you're going to use to cook your rice. So basically you're building up the flavors for your rice. Okay, so now I'm frying my goat meat, and this oil that I'm using here is what I'm going to use to cook my rice. I see some people fry, they turn out the oil and then they put a new one. You're not meant to do that. Okay, so over here you are building up flavors, so this way the oil is going to taste, or rather it's going to smell like goat's meat. And since it's Asun jollof I'm cooking, that is what I want. If I was using chicken, I'll fry my chicken and then use the oil to cook the jollof rice. If I was using turkey, basically the same thing, whatever protein you're going to be using. Okay, so now once your goat meat has gotten this beautiful brown color, you're going to take it out. It depends on how dry you like your goat meat. Personally, I do not like my goat meat to be dry, so that is why I personally do not let it stay in the oil for a long time. Okay, so once you take out your goat meat, you reduce the oil you've needed. I reduced my oil because of the amount of rice I'm cooking. I don't need that much oil, like the amount I used to fry the goat meat. Bear in mind, this is still a lot of oil, but I digress. Okay, so now once you put your oil back on fire, you put in your onions into the oil. And when you're making jollof rice and stew, I see some videos where people chop up their onions. Well, the way I was taught by my mom and my grandma and basically everyone every old lady in my family, is when you're making stew and you're making jollof rice, it looks like you know what you're doing when you cut your onions in this round shape. It looks better to me, maybe because I grew up seeing that, but it doesn't change the taste of your food. So let me not put pressure on things that are not even important. I'm just saying, personally, my preference is to cut your onions in this round shape. And then when you're making jollof rice, I see some people put very little tomato paste. Personally, I use a lot of tomato paste. And then the key is to fry it till it literally dissolves. So as you can see in this video, the tomato paste has literally dissolved. Like, it's the oil now has the color and everything, and what is left there that you can see is really small compared to what I put. So that color comes out in the oil, and it helps the color of your jollof rice, so that your jollof rice is not looking white. Okay, so now once your tomato paste has fried and it has like basically released its color, I see some people say to remove the bitterness. I don't think tomato paste is bitter. The only thing I know is some tomato paste are sour. Now some are not, they are just sweet, because I know my cousin licks tomato paste, so it's not bitter. It's basically to remove the sour taste from the tomato paste. That's what you're doing, and also to release the color. So that's why you fry it properly first before you add in your blended tomato pepper mix. Okay, so fry it first. Don't put the tomato paste and then immediately you put your blended pepper mix. Don't do that. Once you fry your tomato paste, it has removed the color, so I advise you do that for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then you add in your blended pepper mix. Now you give this a good stir, and the oil that you add is going to help it fry properly. So I see, in case you feel, oh, the oil is too much, trust me, by the time this rice is done, you would ask, where is the oil that you used? That is just how jollof rice is, okay? And also, when you're making stew, it helps your tomato base to fry properly and have a really good smell and aroma. So now what I'm adding inside here is, so as I was saying, what I'm adding inside here is my jollof mix. So this brand didn't pay me, but I'm just going to let you know. I use Lasor jollof mix and Lasor chicken seasoning. That's the yellow one. So either I use that, or I use Maggi signature jollof seasoning packets, or I mix the both of them. Sometimes if I'm making a large batch of jollof rice, like the one for parties and stuff, I mix the both of them because it gets me the best flavor. So that's what I use. And then I add in some curry powder, add in some seasoning cubes, and you see, at this point, if your meat stock does not look like this, you have missed it. Okay, so you don't want to boil your meat so basic. Like, you should be able to use your meat stock as pepper soup. That is the goal. That is what we are aiming for. Okay, your meat stock goes a long way to ensuring that you have a bomb ass jollof. Okay, so now for this jollof rice, you're going to, once you put in your meat stock, your stew base should look like stew, like the one that you can literally boil white rice and eat, or you take bread and eat it, or put it on top of beans. The bottom line is, your stew base should look like stew. If it doesn't look like this, then I am sorry, but you are going to need stew to eat your jollof rice. And as I said at the beginning of this video, that is not the aim. The aim is to make jollof rice that does not need stew to be sweet. You know, jollof rice that is sweet on its own, that you're confident. You don't even need pepper sauce to make it sweet. That is what we're making. So now, once I taste it and I'm comfortable with the taste and everything is perfect, I add in a bit of water. I see some people say, oh, please don't add in any amount of water in your... I add in, if my meat stock is not enough, like now if I had more meat stock, I won't bother adding in water. Plus, meat stock is water, because technically that is water. So I add in a bit of water. Note, you don't need too much water when you're making basmati rice, or even if it's normal rice, especially when you're making jollof rice, you do not need too much water. Okay, now even if you mistakenly put so much water, the thing is to just increase the heat so that the rice cooks faster and the water will dry faster, and then you flip it in between. So basically, once you do this and you cover it, I usually cover mine with some foil paper, and then I cover the lid, and then like 10-20 minutes into cooking, or 10 minutes into cooking, I use my spoon and then I do like a flipping of the rice. So basically, that's to make sure that there's even heat distribution round the rice. That is what you want. Okay, so after I cover my rice for the first time, I cover it first for about 10 minutes without the foil. Then I open it, I put the foil, and then I cover it again, and then I leave it again for an extra 10 minutes, and then I do the flipping, as you can see in this video. So I'm basically trying to make sure that the heat is evenly distributed so that my rice can cook properly. Now this basmati rice, I did not parboil it first, because if you parboil your rice first, your rice is going to be too soggy. Especially with basmati rice, there's a very high tendency that your rice would be soggy. So now, once I do the first flipping, I cover it and then I leave it for an extra 10 minutes. I flip again, and then after that second flipping, I cover it for about 20 minutes before I flip the last time. Okay, so I spread it around, I cover it one last time, and then I open it. As at this point, you can start to see that the rice is getting there. So bear in mind that I'm cooking this on low heat. Now, even from this flipping of this rice, I'm very sure even you can see that this rice is going to be sweet. So now you should be able to tell. You know how you cook jollof rice and you're like, I'm not sure if it's okay. From this one now that you're looking at, it's not yet ready, but you can tell that this rice, we don't get her. Okay, so that is what you want. So now, while I have covered my rice to cook, I'm going to be making the asun, that's the peppered goat meat that I would be mixing my rice with, like I will be adding to my rice. Now, cause my rice is already properly seasoned, I am careful to add very little to no seasoning in there. I just added very little seasoning cube to my asun because my rice was already perfectly seasoned, and I knew that if I was to add in the regular seasoning I would use when I'm making asun, my rice will be salty. So also take note, know how well your rice is seasoned so that you know what you are doing. Okay, so here I put in my onions. Now when I'm cooking rice, personally I like using white onions because, as I said, I really don't like saying that, when rice is cold and you use that purple onions, it has this very dull purple color. It looks very depressing. So I don't like seeing that in my food, and because of that, I always opt for the white onions. But cutting these onions will make you cry. If you think that purple onions makes you cry, white onions will teach you that it is learning work. Okay, so I add in some Scotch bonnets, like blended Scotch bonnets that has a bit of garlic inside, and then I'm adding in some smoked paprika inside, and then I'm also adding a bit of curry powder and a bit of seasoning cubes, a very tiny bit of seasoning cubes, emphasis on tiny bits of seasoning cubes. Okay, now once I do that, I give this a good mix, and then the paprika is basically just enhance the color of the asun because I like my asun to look very juicy and red. So I add in a bit of seasoning cubes. I give this a good mix. Remember I said I don't use salt, so I give this a good mix, and then I'm going to add in my fried goat meat. That's the goat meat that we fried earlier. I'm going to be adding it into this pepper mix, and then I'm also going to add in some that's the remainder of my meat stock. So the meat stock, because I seasoned it properly and it's goat meat stock, it's thick, so that way it would help my asun seem like it won't be dry. It would seem like sauce, like it's going to be very saucy, as you can see here. So I forgot to film the part where I added in my meat stock. I just added in a bit of it, and then I'm going to give this a good mix, and my asun is ready. So now once my asun was ready, it was time to check on my rice because I was certain that it should be ready at this point. Okay, so I opened the pot, and as you can see by the grains of the rice, that the rice is ready. It is perfectly done, it is perfectly cooked, and it does not need any extra cooking time. So I turn off my heat, and then I give this rice a good mix. You can see from this video that this rice has so much flavor. And you know how you watch a video on Instagram or on YouTube and you're like, I know this food is very sweet, and at the same time when you watch some videos and you're like, this food is not sweet. That's this video. You cannot tell me that you cannot feel the taste, or rather you cannot watch the taste of this rice. I know that doesn't make any sense, but yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is this is what you want your outcome to be. You can see the color of this rice. It is beautiful. The grains are single. Everything, the heat was distributed evenly, and everything looks perfect. So at this point, I'm going to be adding in my asun. That I remember that oil that I was saying. You asked me where the oil went. Did you see this rice? That is perfectly dry and okay. So that is how jollof rice is. Okay. So once you're adding your asun, you're going to want to give this a good mix and make sure that everything is mixed properly and is like, basically it's not that some rice has asun, some doesn't have, or some got like, you want to mix it properly. So I give this a good stir, and once I give it a good stir, my rice is ready. I don't need to leave it under the heat to steam or anything, because my rice already has the goat meat flavor. One, I use the goat meat stock. Two, I use the oil that I used to fry my goat meat to cook my rice. And there is no way that even if this rice was stubborn, it would not get the flavor that I want it to have. Okay, so at this point, your rice is perfectly cooked. I served mine with some salad, and I had it with chicken that I grilled in the air fryer. It was so good, trust me. Like, I wish I could give you guys this to try over the phone. Anyways, if you have any questions whatsoever, just leave in the comment section and I'll try my best to respond the best way I can. Please like this video, subscribe, share my video, and tell people to come and check out how to make the best jollof rice. Record breaking. I keep telling you guys that over here we do not do regular stuff. It is record breaking stuff on nothing at all. Okay,